So this is a short little video about how to plan your day, how to get some weather information, some sources of information for planning your day, and also about where we can walk and where we can't walk, what the rules are, and also some stuff on how to read, how to use a map, what a map is. Okay, so we'll start with planning your day, some things we need to consider from the start. Most important is that the people, who are we going with? What is my ability? What's the group's ability? What are our goals? Do the goals match the ability? Okay, so we don't overextend ourselves. Everybody likes a challenge, but there's a fine line between challenging yourself and overdoing it and getting into trouble. What kit have we all got? Is it suitable for what we're going to do? Does it match the weather? What fitness we've got and our experience. Next thing to consider would be the route that we're going to take, or the route that we're going to plan. Does the distance, terrain, the difficulty, the steepness, does it match our ability? Does it match our goals for the day? Our fitness, so if we're planning a huge 30-kilometre walk, are the people in the group fit enough to do that? Okay, it's really good if you are going out as a group of friends, that you sort of match the route to suit everybody, that you're not just going there with an individual goal that doesn't really match whatever people are capable of doing. And then finally, what's the weather doing? Okay, especially the wind, precipitation, so rain or snow, and the temperature. How's that going to affect everybody during the day? Have they got the kit to cope with different types of weather and some really bad weather? So if you mix all those together, then we should be planning a route, planning a day in the mountains that somehow meets in the middle, so that the people match the route, matches the weather. So if we come to Snowdonia with a plan to walk up a particular route, but unfortunately the weather on the day doesn't really make that a good decision, we've got a plan B. Okay, so be flexible about what you do. So the mountain weather then. Numerous sources of information on the internet for getting the weather, and what we're after really is a mountain forecast. So something that's specific to the mountainous areas, so that it gives you what the temperature and wind speed is at altitude, so at the summit sort of levels, rather than just what's going on in the town, because it's obviously going to be higher winds and maybe cooler temperatures. So the Met Office do a mountain specific forecast for all the national park areas and the areas of Scotland. They also do a forecast for an individual mountain on its own, so you can get a bespoke forecast for Tryfan, which really dials in the detail, and that's what I use an awful lot for my weather forecasting. Another service on the internet is the Mountain Weather Information Service, which again is a different forecast, so somebody else's slant on what might be happening, and again for all the different mountainous areas of the UK. So that's when I start my planning. If I'm going out at the weekend, I might start looking at the beginning of the week, what's the forecast going to be doing at the weekend, so I can start sort of getting an idea of what it is I'm going to do. The next thing I consider is who am I going with, and what is it we want to achieve, and start planning my day like that. Really, really important to look at the forecast and match the forecast with what you want to do. So this is just some of the air masses that affect the UK, so to get an idea. So if we've got a sort of southerly airflow from those tropical regions, that means it's going to bring with it some warm air. Anything that crosses over the sea we refer to as a maritime air mass, and that's going to bring with it some moisture. Yeah. So if we got a southwesterly airflow or a westerly airflow, which is pretty common for UK weather, our most common air mass, if you like, that's going to bring with it some rain. Okay, and anything coming from the north, polar, the Arctic areas, that's going to bring with it colder air. Okay, so if we're looking at a weather forecast and it's coming from the north, we get an idea that we're in for a colder time. So the wind plays a big factor. Not only can it knock you over, okay, and would rule out some routes. For example, narrow ridges wouldn't be a great place to be in strong winds. But it also makes us feel a lot colder. So if you've heard of the phrase wind chill, that's what temperature the wind makes you feel like. Okay, so it's not the actual temperature, it's just how it makes you feel. So as an example, at the top there, top left, with a temperature of 20 degrees C and a wind speed of 10 miles an hour, the actual temperature would feel like 17. so that doesn't really make much difference. But then if we get down to 0 degrees C with a wind speed of 30 miles an hour, we're at -11, so that's pretty cold, or pretty cold feeling. Doesn't mean to say that everything will be icing up, because it's not actually freezing. If you stood behind a wall, it wouldn't be that temperature anymore. But if you combine that with soaking wet jacket and then a wind speed of that high at that temperature, you're going to start to feel really, really cold, and that's when hypothermia can really start kick in. So another thing to consider is, as we get higher, the air cools down. This is what we call the dew point, or saturated, unsaturated air cooling. The lapse rate is what this is known at. So as you can see there, so Ben Nevis is 1,341 metres, so 100 metres higher than the little chart. So if we were staying in Fort William, say November time, and the temperature was 10 degrees in Fort William, it could well be below freezing at the summit, which means there could be ice on the path, or it could be snowing. Okay, so something to consider there. As you get higher, the temperature gets cooler. And this is why really the mountain specific forecast is really useful, because it will tell us what the temperature is going to be at summit level. So some stuff on route planning then. Okay, so lots of information on the internet. Here's just a couple of examples of some good websites with some good walks, and it will give you a good idea of where the walk starts, how to get there, where to park, all the logistics of it, and also where to go on the ground. Some of them have even got a link to sort of mapping, and if you're into using GPSs, you can get a GPX file from some of them. Some of them you have to pay for that. If you're going to Scotland, this website called Walk Highlands is a really good resource. Not only has it got some good walking routes in it, but it's also got a mine of information about other stuff as well. So some top tips on how to navigate, etc., etc. Well worth a look. But the key thing is, before you go out, do your research on where you're going, so that you've got a really good idea in your mind what the route is like. So you're not just making it up on the day. You've got in the back of your head, you've got this idea of the type of terrain, the type of route that you're going to be taking. Also, for route planning, these old things called books. So some really good ones of them. The Munros down there, that's all the mountains over 3,000 feet in Scotland. Trail magazine has some good routes in it every month. So just another means of doing your homework before you get out there, really. So here's this is the map for the local area for Snowdonia, and this covers just about all of the North Snowdonia, the popular peaks, really. If you download, there's an app you can get, OS Maps, and if you now buy a map, you get a code, and you can even have it on your phone. So we've got no excuses, really. So where can we go? What's the rules and regulations? So we can walk on public footpaths. Anything known as a public footpath or a public right-of-way is a legal right-of-way. Nobody can stop you going on them. And on a 1 to 25,000 map, they're marked as a green dashed line. We also have this thing in England and Wales called access land. So this is areas of mostly the upland areas that are deemed open access, and you can just about walk wherever you like on that. You don't have to stick to rights of way. You can wander off the beaten track. Scotland, slightly different. They have a thing called the Scottish Outdoor Access Code, and they basically have a right to roam wherever you like, to be honest. You don't have to stick to the footpaths up there. So where this kind of kicks in and makes a difference is when you're down in the valley at the start of the day. So when you're making your way through, say, farmland, you need to make sure that you stick to public footpaths, because you probably won't be on access land. And then once you get up onto the open hillside, you're generally speaking going to be in access land, and you can go where you want to. Doesn't mean to say you have to stay off the path, but sometimes your route planning might take you away from the main path. So these two organisations here, the British Mountaineering Council at the bottom there, and the Ramblers, these do some really great work with regard to access and getting us access to the hills and cliffs and footpaths, keeping them open, etc., etc. And they also have information about restrictions on where you can and cannot go. If you're going somewhere a little bit off the beaten track, a little bit weird, then it's worth having a look on their websites. So, for example, down in Pembrokeshire, there's an army range, so they have restrictions on when you can visit that for obvious reasons. So looking at the map here, this is a 1 to 25,000 map. You see that some of it is shaded a sort of browny beige colour and some of it is white. Okay, so the areas marked that are just white, that are not shaded, that means it's not access land. So we have to stick to the main public rights of way there, so either a footpath or a bridleway. Where it's shaded in brown, which is the majority of it, that means we can walk anywhere we like there. Okay, doesn't mean we say we have to, because some of it will be pretty awful to walk on, but you can if you want to. So maps and navigation then. Okay, let's have a look at this. So what is a map? Basically, it's if you were taking a photograph looking down on the ground, it's a way of recreating that image. So that at the moment you can't tell what's up and what's down. Okay, so it's pretty flat, pretty two-dimensional. But then if we add some mapping to it, we can add contour lines and show the way the ground goes up and down. So this is Moyle Shabod. So there's the picture that's just morphed into the map. So you can see now we've got all these brown squiggly lines, which are the contour lines. So these show where the ground is rising. So if the contour lines are really close together, that means the ground is really steep. And if they're spaced out, it's not so steep. So the contour lines are 10 meters apart. And we've got some thick brown ones, which are 50 meters apart. And you can see the numbers written on the thick brown ones. We call those index contour lines. And the way they're written is written so that the writing is pointing uphill all the time. So if you only see a number written on the map, you know that the way it's written is pointing to uphill. So really important that you're able to identify which way is up and which way is down. Also on there as well, there's some black squiggles which represent cliffs and crags. So where the ground is really steep, where the contour lines are really close together, we've also got a lot of rocky terrain, which is what the black squiggles are all about, really. So the mapping then, the whole country is broken down into grids. So if we wanted to, the area that we're in is SH, which you can just see on the grid on the left. Okay, and then they are further subdivided into smaller areas and then smaller areas still. So if we're going to give somebody a grid reference, okay, we need to take hold of our map and we need to find some numbers. So we start by going across, as it says at the bottom there. We go along the corridor first and then we go up the stairs. Okay, so the red dot in the yellow square there, if we start with the big number 18, then we work our way across and it's in 5, so that would be 185, and then we'll go up the way. So we start with 44, and the next number that the red dot is in is 3, so it would be 185 443. So another important feature on the map that we need to be aware of is the scale. So a 1 to 25,000 scale map basically means that 4 centimeters on the map is equal to 1 kilometer on the ground. So a grid square on a 1 to 25k map is 4 centimeters wide, or 4 centimeters by 4 centimeters. So that means it represents a kilometer. So if you were going to walk across 2 grid squares, you're basically walking 2 kilometers. Yeah. You can also, on your compass, you'll have a measuring device, a roamer, or just a ruler, so you can measure the distance. If we know the distance away something is, so from A to B is say 4 kilometers, from that we can work out how long it's going to take us, which is quite an important thing for navigating. On a 1 to 50,000 map, it's a smaller scale there, so 2 centimeters is equal to 1 kilometer. Okay, so the grid square is yet again a kilometer wide, but it's only 2 centimeters, so much less detail. Yeah. Which is good enough if you're going to do lots and lots of hills, because you don't want to be carrying around a big map. However, if you're going to be navigating to smaller features, then this doesn't show up so much. Okay, so that's it really. You'll learn more while you're out on the hill with Dewi. So thanks for watching that.